Hi everyone, welcome back to our discussion, episode number 3, the framework of historical research methodology. So, in so I am trying to explain the basic framework of historical research methodology. There are 15 elements of this historical framework of historical research methodology. The first one is the selection of the topic. As you know, this is the most difficult task of research process, the overall research process. So when we most of you teachers may not sometimes you are familiar with some students approach you, UG, the third year UG students or final PG students comes to you with some topics for their project, the so-called dissertation of the project. Sometimes you reject them because the topic is not fitted to or not suitable for the suitable. Sometimes especially the sources or data is not sufficient. So anyway, it is the most difficult task of research process. And the next one is the review literature. Review literature is a background or know about background of the or the knowledge about the previous studies. So it has been done by surveys, seminars, journals like electronic and print, books, magazines, websites, JSTOR, subject indexes, subject abstracts, electronic or online databases, search engines, Google, Bing, like other online and offline sources, and these are the some of the tools to use this review literature. And in the review literature, a research scholar is trying to find out the research gap or research problem. So identify the research gap, especially by using the current journals, by analyzing the or goes through the current journals. Some recent literature will help to find the research gap, and it is continued throughout the research up to final thesis. So review literature is a continuous process. So there are so many elements in the research review literature or theoretical framework. I will discuss it in the coming episodes. And the third element of this this is working bibliography. So the preliminary reading gives the titles. So it is a keep track of sources about your topic. So working bibliography start with the review literature always. When you start the research, your working bibliography starts. So after the working bibliography after will become a final bibliography when you finish your dissertation or thesis. So it is a continuous work, and there are additions and deletions. The working bibliography, it will frequently change during your research. It will evolve into final bibliography when you erase the library stack code number. So always use this for this working bibliography. Always use a computer file because we can make it as a this working bibliography can make it change it to as a final bibliography. When you erase the code number, library stack code number, and also this working bibliography, there are additions and deletions. Also, so it is so working bibliography, as we discussed with the working bibliography starts with when you start the preliminary readings of a particular topic. That is very important. So working bibliography starts with when you try to start or when you start your reading for to select a topic. So it is very important. Whatever you read for not to select a topic, that became a working bibliography. So why it is called a working bibliography? Because it is there are changes. There is a chances of changes, and also it is a continuous process. So create a computer for a working bibliography. So this is something very few very brief idea about the working bibliography. I will discuss it in the coming episodes. And the next element is objectives. So objectives very so actually this objectives leads to you to the final conclusion. So objectives, when we start the research, we frame some objectives. So these objectives leads to frame a research hypothesis. And the research hypothesis, from the research hypothesis for the quantitative studies, so that's the research hypothesis leads research scholar for his or her entire work. Okay, next element is, or fifth element is research design or research procedure or research methodology. So there are two approaches, quantitative or qualitative, and also four aspects: participants in the study, methods of data collection, or whether it is interview or participatory observation or a non-participatory observation, or like that, or focus group interview or like that, and also tools to be used for the proposed study, and there's a procedure for the procedure of the research, whether it is the studies is based on the individual or group. And also decides made hypothesis or not. So in the research design itself, the research scholar has to decide whether this studies needs hypothesis or not. If it is a quantitative studies, even though it is a historical studies, we need to frame hypothesis. But if it is in the qualitative studies, there is no need of to frame hypothesis at all. But instead of that, you can start your study with a statement of a theme or statement of a proposition, not proposition, proposition, or statement of a theory or already existing theory, or a statement or based on a particular argument. So we have already discussed about this in very brief. Anyway, I will give more details about this in the later episodes. Then if you use this quantitative studies, if you frame hypothesis, then you have to test the hypothesis and prove the hypothesis. And if you cannot prove the hypothesis, then you have to go back to the initial stage, and you have to, because sometimes you might have collect some the faulty methods for data collection or sources. So sometimes there are some errors in the data or data collection procedure or methods or tools. So you have to change the whole system or methods. So it is the framing of hypothesis with regard to quantitative studies, not for qualitative studies. So you can use this qualitative hypothesis, framing hypothesis, but it should have some quantitative elements in there. And also at the in qualitative use, so we have already discussed about that. And the next element is a research question. That research question or topic became research question. So I will explain one. So we have already discussed that the research objectives that became the research question. And the research question, from the research question, a research scholar can make a research hypothesis. I'll give you an example. So the one research question is, does the clothing a man wears influence the behavior of other men? So it is a research question. I will explain. I will explain it in, once more. Does the clothing a man wears influence the behavior of other men? And from this research question, we can make a research hypothesis. It will be like that. The clothing a man wears will influence the behavior of other men when he is in a position of authority related to the rest of the group. That means, I will explain once more. The research hypothesis from a research question will be like this: the clothing a man wears will influence the behavior of other men when he is in a position of authority related to the rest of the group. That means the position of authority, that person who is wearing that particular dress cloth is the position of the man is he is in a position of authority. That means he is a celebrity or filmmaker or politician. So sometimes the common people follows the dressing style of or the clothing style of the a celebrity or filmmaker or politician or some important person. So from the research question we can make a research hypothesis. Okay, next element is research hypothesis or statement of thesis, theory or proposition or a particular argument. So we have already discussed about this kind of things. And then is after this 7 elements, a research scholar starts with actual collection of data. So after this these 7 elements are very important for to before starting the research data collection or source collection. So in quantitative studies it is says that data, but in qualitative studies it is especially in history we say it is the sources. Then the ninth element of the historical research methodology is the note taking. There are three mediums. We have briefly explained this kind of things: index cards, library index cards, notebooks, computer or laptop or mobile. Also use app like or online. So every all kind of things there are, you can use app or online tools like Google Docs or OneNote or Evernote like that. In order to store ideas. And also there are three methods like summarize, paraphrasing, and quotations. So sometimes we when we take other person's ideas or whatever things we collect from some other person's work. So we can use we can make it as a summary. We can make it as a paraphrase, or sometimes we can take it as the quotation. If we need to validate some points, we can make some quotations. So don't remember to put the quotation marks. So so this is an ninth element of the historical research. And 10th was the data analysis and interpretation. So in this data analysis and interpretation in history, we use heuristic part 2, or external criticism and hermeneutics of analytic operation. Both for the data analysis and interpretations, data analysis we both use heuristics and hermeneutics, or external and internal criticism. And the 11th element of this historical research methodology is generalization and interpretation. So, so in this generalization and interpretation is part of the synthetic operation. So the analyzed data for meaningful conclusion. So we use some about 7 logical inferences like inductive and deductive logical reasoning. We have already some ideas about the some logical reasoning. And the 12th element is conclusion and findings. So after the synthetic operation or the analyzed, we collected data and we analyzed the data by using the heuristics and hermeneutics or external or internal criticism. After that we synthesize or group in the facts, or organize the facts, or or we use some kind of logical reasoning like the inductive or deductive logical reasoning. After that we generalize the our arguments, and after that we interpret the arguments, and then we conclude. So we have such called give conclusion and findings. So this is the last stages of the process, historical process. And the 13th element is the recommendations for further research. Sometimes there will be some research gaps. Sometimes, even though we start our research based on some research problem or research question. So these research problems or gaps we identify by using when we are applying this review of literature or working bibliography. When we start working bibliography, we can and also review literature, we can identify some research gaps or research problem. So the research problems, we start with this research problem or research gaps, we start our research, and after that, after conclusion, we find that yes, we have, or I have, the research scholars try to find the solution of the research problem. So then, even though there are, if he or she tries to find the research problem or research question, there are some gaps. So that research gaps or research that it is given to the future scholars. So we have to give some recommendation, and the 14th is suggestions for solving the problem. Some particular suggestions based on the studies or the conclusion or findings. And then the 15th element is writing the thesis. In here only we start the writing, the process of writing is started, the preliminaries, the test part, and also the reference material. The test part, the test part we actually we gave importance to the classification of, or the divide the whole work into chapters, like introductory chapter and the core chapters and concluding chapters. And also if you use footnote, use the footnote here, but if you use the end notes, use the end note here in the reference section. Okay, this is something about the framework of the historical research methodology. Okay, thank you. Please share and subscribe and like. Thank you.